Poised to bring Nikki Kearns in from Turnium and Roger Bell. So we're excited to introduce them to you. Let's bring Nikki in. Nikki, how are you?
Good morning, everyone.
Today we're going to be discussing Turnium's Secure SD-WAN.
That's correct, yeah. I'm very excited. Thank you very much for the opportunity to do so.
All right, over to you, Nikki.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. Real honor to work with you, David, because you are a man who knows how to bring together lots of good platforms and make a true solution for customers. And that's really the kind of partners we like to work with. And I would like to kick off with a little bit of a history lesson here. So I think some of the older members of the audience might know what this is. Some of the younger members might not. It's a Sony Walkman. And back in the 70s, this revolutionized music because it made music portable. It made it able to carry with you, all of the rest of it. And this became an essential tool for everyone. So we loved our music. We had it with us. We could record things and so on. And then the next thing that came along then was the ability to have it on a disc. And then we didn't have all of the poor quality of the tape, all of the other issues. And suddenly we had this digital music on a disc that we could bring with us. It was really, again, transformational. But of course, time moves on, and then we moved on to this world of MP3 and Napster and downloading music and listening to it on your computer and all of that good stuff. And suddenly we had this kind of batch process kind of concept of having music downloaded and you could listen to it and do these kind of things. And that was even more revolutionary. And then we came to the world we are in today, where you've got your Apple Music. Forgive me for having the old logo for Apple Music there, but you have Apple Music and Spotify, and we have our mobile devices, our phones, our iPhones, our Android, and so on and so forth. And this is the world we live in today. But what's different from the world we live in today versus the world of before is we need real-time network. We have to have real-time network, otherwise it doesn't work. Sure, you can download it, but you get my point. To be able to listen to your music anytime, anywhere, you need good network to be there for you. So when you go into the backcountry, you better remember to download your music first, otherwise you ain't got any music to listen to. And this concept translates its way into business because everything we do today now is online. Everything is in the cloud. It's in the private cloud, public cloud. It's in the headquarters site, wherever it may be. It's typically somewhere else. And we can talk all we like about all these really cool cloud applications and integrations and APIs and yada, yada, yada. But if you ain't got network, you ain't got nothing, because you need this as your base to do everything else. Digital transformation depends on it. And sometimes you'll hear the people talking about this as the Amazonation of business. And if you go through the last 20 years, we've gone from a point where network was a nice to have to where network is a utility. It's an essential. It's as essential as water or electricity. We need it to live. We need it to run businesses. And this is reflected now. This is an older survey, but I think it would even be more accentuated today, that the need to drive towards digital transformation, one of the top requirements that people ask for is reliability of connectivity. They absolutely need to be connected. Now, if you live in a world where your provider never goes down, good for you. That's amazing. And you don't even think about it. It's a bit like the plumbing in your building. You don't think about it. But as soon as it goes wrong, that's all you think about, because it becomes essential to you. I worked downtown Vancouver for a number of years, and I remember one time the plumbing on one side of the building went out. All the men's washrooms in the entire building was not available to anyone. And to say there was some sense of panic in that building was an understatement. So network is the same. It's as long as it's not giving you a problem, you don't think about it. As soon as you've got a problem, you realize how important it is, because everything else stops. Interestingly enough, you see the second one, which is the security aspect. And this is another thing that Connects does a really good job integrating these components together with the compute, which is where the work gets done, and the storage where the work lives. So you got the storage, work lives here, compute, do stuff with the work, network, move the stuff around, and security, make sure no one gets in the way. So pretty much that's the way the Connects world looks to me. Now, the impact of you going down is significant. For some businesses more than others, but I recall a system-wide outage with Shaw a few years ago, and I remember half the coffee shops in the city were closed because they weren't able to transact money. And they lost money. The people went to the coffee shop that was on the TELUS network because they were still working. And these people never went back to the first coffee shop and so on. So it's actually business affecting. And, that's a simple example, but, we rely on this stuff daily. And so you have to make sure that your network is solid and reliable. You cannot go down. And this is where we come in. Now, we are not a solution in itself. We work with partners like Connex to bring you a complete end-to-end solution for digital transformation, for cloud connectivity, for everything else, all of the things you need to run your business. And because Turnium is a service, it's not a box you buy, not like you go out and buy a Meraki or you go out and buy a Fortinet or something. This is a service you subscribe to with Connex that becomes the platform, the foundation for everything else you do. So let's take a very simple example. We're going to get a little bit technical now, but not too much. So take the example. You are a single site business. You're an important business. You have essential transactions. You have a lot of things going on, but you have one location. So you are concerned about connecting to all those applications in the internet, to the internet itself, and for everything else that's out there. What we do, very simple, we take all the connectivity that's available to you, and typically it's going to be a broadband or two and maybe an LTE as a backup, because in Canada, LTE is expensive, cheap to buy, but expensive to use. So you're going to have like a mixture of connectivity. You may be out in the remote district, you might be using Starlink, whatever is available to you, you use. We can aggregate all those circuits together so they look like one logical circuit to you and your business. So in this example of a simple one location, you're going to have a firewall. The firewall is going to connect to us, our device that sits there as part of the service, and you're going to think you're connecting to one provider. Behind the scenes, you're connecting to multiple, and we don't just do a failover between providers. We actually aggregate the traffic at a per packet basis across those links. And we keep an eye on those links in real time to make sure they're well and healthy and working. And so if there's degradation of those links, if it's not too bad, we keep using them. If it gets past a certain point, we take them out of that aggregation bond without you even noticing, because we're doing it per packet, so we just flow around it. And just the link comes back 3 seconds later, 10 minutes later, whatever, we start using it again in real time. There's no reconvergence of the network. There is no 5-minute delay like some of our competitors take before they have to make sure the link is down, that kind of thing. We know immediately when it's having problems. And here's the other cool thing. We have something called same IP failover. What that means is that your traffic is using the same IP it used before, regardless of which link it might be. You might be running traffic over Rogers, over TELUS, over Bell, over Starlink, over whatever, but your IP address stays the same. And this is really cool because all your sessions stay happy, they stay connected, they don't have to reconverge, they don't have to reestablish. None of these things happen with traditional networking. My background is Cisco. I worked for Cisco for 20 years, and the complexity of doing failover in the WAN kept me in the job for many years. So I know how difficult it is to get a fast, quick failover without disrupting traffic. It's pretty much impossible with traditional technologies. But with our magic little per packet load balancing and aggregation, we keep things running. So that's one location. What happens when you go to a second location? We introduce multiple locations. Now, you can treat them as individual locations connected to the internet, but you can also create private networks. And this is the essence of what David and the Connex team are doing, about creating your private domain that encompasses everything you need, whether it be disaster recovery, whether it be security in the cloud, whether it be compute at the edge, whether it be cloud services like IBM, and so on, Azure, etc., and bring them all together into one private network so everything is connected to everyone with that high level of reliability we talked about earlier, and security. So this becomes the future of your network. And remember, this is a service, just like your water and electricity. This is not a box you have to buy and figure out how to set it up yourself. We do that for you. So it's a plug and play world you're entering, because we all know the WANs are complex to set up. And we also know it's harder to find people like old guys like me with gray hair. It's harder to find people like us who know to configure this stuff, because we are a dying breed, just like the COBOL programs of the past. We are a dying breed. So this is basically how we can connect all your locations together. Now, when I say a location, I don't mean just a bricks and mortar branch site or a headquarters site. It can be anything. It can be a temporary site. Maybe you're running a project at a hotel for a week. Maybe you have a mining site and you're doing some surveys for a few weeks. Maybe you have a project team working in someone else's location. But it also could be something that's moving. Think about a vehicle that has IoT on board. It could be a train, it could be a ship, it could be an aircraft, it could be a works vehicle in a city, it could be a mining truck, it could be any of the above. And there is a ton of telemetry and IoT on these devices. And the problem with today's industry is that you can't easily get real-time data reliably off these vehicles. But if you think about aggregating multiple LTEs together with a failover to satellite and know that it's connected all the time, now you can do real-time analysis of what's going on in your environment. Very, very exciting. And the last kind of location that I'll refer to here is the idea of a cloud location, because I've read some articles recently where people said multi-cloud is a dream. It can't happen because every cloud provider does this private networking differently, and it's just too complicated to figure out how to connect them together. In our world, our edge device is simply a piece of software running on x86. That can be an x86 in a virtual machine, physical machine, whatever. And that means we can stand up an edge device inside any cloud provider, meaning all your cloud assets are now inside your private network like everything else. So it's been super powerful, super easy to connect anything everywhere. Everything anywhere is our tagline. And this is how it works. A little mention about what's behind the scene here. And you have your location, you have a firewall. You won't have firewalls at every site if you're doing private networking, of course, but in the case of a simple firewall, then you have your CPE, your edge device, that then aggregates all the circuits together back to our data centers, to a device called an aggregator, and that then takes our traffic to all your other locations or to the internet or wherever you want it to go, and it can go right to the cloud providers as well. So this is what sits in behind the scenes. We have a management server taking care of all of this. You have the ability to see your piece of the network, so you can see how well your links are performing, how well your boxes are performing, which links are up, which links are down. And you can then hold your providers accountable for their performances, which is a kind of a cool thing, because you can actually see the historical performances of your providers, not just whether the link was up or down, but you can also see the packet loss, you can see the jitter, the latency, and you can go to your Rogers and your Bells of the world and say, look, your service every afternoon it seems to degrade. Why is that? And they'll say, well, no, it never does. And so we have the evidence. So you can see this kind of thing. So it gives you the visibility as well into what's going on in your network. So not just about connectivity, it's about the visibility as well. So in a very simple world, your locations are sitting there with multiple links that are aggregated together, and one of these links can be designated as a failover, incidentally, and you can just simply use it to connect to the internet with quality of service, I should say. I forgot to mention that earlier, and protecting your key assets from other ones. We'll show you that in the demo. But also helps you connect to services that are in the cloud. And these are services that David and the Connects team will be providing. And it also connects you to other services that, like your SAP and your SAP and your CRM services and all of the other things you use to run your business. So this is basically the essence of what it's about. You plug and play, and you just set everything else up together. In a Connects world, it looks a little bit like this. So we'll take an example of our friends over at Scale. Big fans of Scale, amazing technology that they have there. And we actually, well, we'll come to that in a second. So this is about an example of disaster recovery. So you're running edge compute. I don't pretend to be an expert in edge compute and HCS, sorry, HC3s and Scale computing platforms. I just know that I hear everyone talking about how great it is. So this is an example where you might set up a disaster recovery environment across a WAN. and you want to make sure everything is synced and everything is connected to each other and everything is backed up and so on. But then you do this over your private network with that super high level reliability, using all the links are available to you, not having to worry about reconvergence, downtime in the middle of a backup, all of those kind of things. So really, really cool. And then another view of the kind of the world of a hybrid cloud development, where you have services kind of in the cloud and in your own private environment, using some of the other partners from Connects as well. So this is basically back to the every location, every service available all the time, which basically is what it's all about. Now, I'm going to talk about another customer, and this, sorry, David, this is not a Connects customer, but it's kind of a cool one. I cannot mention the end customer's name. Suffice to say that they are a large online retailer, one of the biggest, I'll leave it at that. And this is a project that is worldwide, developed through one of our partners in the UK, and they have the connectivity for all the warehouses. And this is to make sure that they know what to have, when it gets on the truck, when everything else happens, because everything lives out of their warehouses, and they have to make sure that everything is working all the time, and they cannot afford downtime. And so they have deployed our technology to half of the warehouses, I'll be honest, because they do redundancy as well, and that's completely fine. And they depend on us for half of the warehouses globally. And this is really, really cool. And that is to enable primarily their IoT world. So you think about all of the other things, not just conventional business people doing their emails and doing their CRM and things like this. Think about all of the other things that need connectivity in the IoT world. These could be building automation systems, they could be manufacturing plants, they could be mining sites, they could be disaster recovery, emergency vehicles in fire zones, and so on and so forth. So this is what it's about. So connecting everything so you have data as real time as possible, as reliably as possible. This is the game. So the last one I'll mention is one that I was kind of involved in personally, and is Rocky Mountaineer. And to the point I mentioned earlier about things that move, the Rocky Mountaineer is for some of you who don't know what Rocky Mountaineer is, I'm assuming most of you do. It's a luxury train service, and I'm not doing them honor here because I'm not showing the full map of their network. I'm just showing the Canadian part. They also have trains running in Colorado and the Rocky Mountains of the States, between Moab and Salt Lake City or somewhere, I don't know exactly know. And they are relying on us to connect over the LTE networks as they move through the mountains. Now, interestingly enough, there's parts of the Rocky Mountains don't have any LTE at all either. So they are not going to be connected all the time using LTE bonding. But I know from the experience of driving from Vancouver to Kelowna, if I have a phone from Thales and one of my passengers has a phone from Rogers, one of us is usually connected all the time, pretty much. But we individually losing service constantly. So imagine when you can bond those two together and continue to keep service the whole time. And interestingly enough, I hope the Rocky Mountaineer team don't mind me mentioning, but they are looking at putting Starlink on some of these trains as well to fill in those gaps where there is simply, we can't make LTE towers appear, so there's a limit to what we can do. But put Starlink on these trains and you've got solved the last problem. So this is a really cool one. I'm very proud of this one because it highlights the fact that we do things on the move as well. And we particularly do them well because this really is a nod to our real-time reaction to networking environments changing constantly, which is particularly profound when you're moving around. So that is that is a little overview of what Turnium does and what it does in the Connects world for business customers. And this is about digital transformation and about private networking and about connecting everything to anything to everything all at the same time from anywhere. Now, what I would like to do is I'd like to show this in action, and I'm going to bring in my colleague Roger. And Roger, I'm hoping you're kind of on standby here, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Roger's demo environment first. So Roger, in his environment, Roger is in Toronto. I'm in Portugal, incidentally. That's where I'm located right now. It's where I live these days. And Roger is in Toronto. and he has a Turnium device in his home office that has got two broadband circuits. Let's say they're fibers. I think they're fiber, and he has an LTE. Now the LTE is configured as a failover. It doesn't have to be. It can be a primary, but in his case, because he has to expense his LTE card and he doesn't want to have to battle for the money every month, so he just uses a failover. But we want to demonstrate that concept of a failover anyway. So as long as both broadbands are working fine, the LTE is doing nothing except we're keeping an eye on it to make sure it's healthy. So we are checking the LTE even if we're not sending traffic on it. So there's a tiny amount of like kind of health traffic going along the line. But the fibers are working away. But then something happens, one of the fibers drops. Everything keeps working. But if both fibers go, as our little scissors comes along, and that can happen, like Bell and Rogers in a particular location, truck crashes into the box at the end of the road, and they're both out. Happens more often than you would care to believe. So if you haven't experienced it yet, you will at some point or other. And then instantly, and I'm talking about like 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, that's instantly to me, the LTE is in service and it's carrying the voice traffic. And the voice call is completely uninterrupted. The video calls are completely interrupted. And all going well today, we will be able to show that to you. Okay, so Roger's brought up the dashboard. Yes, thank you, Roger. Roger has brought up the dashboard, and thank you for doing that. So this is kind of what you would see if you logged in and you were looking at your site. So in Roger's case, he's got 3 sites. One of them is completely down, but that's just a test site. And he's got 2 other locations. I can secretly know that Roger goes up to his mom's house and brings his LTE modem with him. And so he's now at Endurance FW, the one at the top one. And the other one is his office in his main home. And so he's got his LT with him. And so you'll see in the that very top line, that's the location he's at. And he's got three legs, as we mentioned in the diagram earlier. Now, all 3 legs are healthy. So you got a nice green healthy button, and you got a little green button over the sides and the status. The device is up, it's happy. We're on top of it all. The 3rd button has a wee box around it, and that means that link is in a failover mode. So I personally, as an engineer, ex-Cisco engineer, I like the graphics, and they're very simple, and very easy to understand, and there's not too much noise here. But before we kind of describe what those buttons mean, I want to bring your attention up to a little window at the top called Downtime Prevented. And Roger can circle his mouse around that there. So you can see how well this has been working for you, your customer. This is for all 3 sites. Last time you've had 5 minutes of outages, 3 outages. Last month you've had 2 hours, 10 minutes, 18 outages. And these are the outages that we prevented downtime for. So that means, because one of the problems we have is that customers say, well, I'm not sure we need your service because our network never goes down. I said, it never goes down because you're using our service. So this is the evidence we present. So further down, you'll see the leg status legend. If you scroll down there, Roger, and you'll see there's a few different stages. So up and down are kind of obvious. So up means everything's well, it's clean, things are running well. But there's a few down at the bottom are kind of interesting. So like the orange exclamation mark, it means that the link is having problems. The one below that, Roger, yeah, the link is having problems, but it's still usable. So we're going to continue to use it. If the latency is bad, we might not put voice traffic over it, but we're going to keep using that link as long as it's within a certain criteria. This all happens automatically in the background. You don't have to configure anything. This is the beauty of it. It is a plug and play technology. But the one above is kind of interesting. Link has its speed reduced automatically. This is where sometimes, especially cable and sometimes LTE links, when they're really poor, when they're overloaded, if you back off the amount of data going over them, they might clean up. Rather than taking it out of the aggregation, just slow down the traffic on that link a bit and see if it improves. So we can configure a link to be in this automatic mode as well. So it means it's a little bit more proactive. We're checking its conditions a bit more often, but we can actually back off a link to try and bring it back. So it's almost like trying to make it better before you give up on it, if you like. So Roger, if you could care to kind of zoom in on the Endurance FW, and I would just want to show them some of the graphs of performance. We can see what's going on. So if you'd be good enough, sorry, just go back up again for a second, the 3 bars for the links before we That's my bad. There. So this is a quick snapshot of what's going on in your 3 WAN links at this location in real time. And you will see the 2 links are being healthy and well, the 2 broadband links, but you'll see there's a red bar in the last 24 hours. And I'm guessing Roger showed up at his other place about kind of 21 hours ago and turned on his LTE. Making a wild guess here. So you can see stuff instantly by having a quick look at this. So Roger, if you want to scroll down a little bit further and look at the graphs, and maybe kind of stop at the kind of the latency and packet loss one. So you can see how much data is going through the different links, and we can look at that on a per leg basis or in total on the tunnel. But you can see here the latency, and the latency charts are showing us 2 things, latency and jitter, and then the packet loss. So you can see the links are pretty clean, but this is where you get the evidence to go back to your service provider and say, give them a hard time, because you know what those links are doing. And this is, and more importantly, you can look at the last 15 minutes or you can look at the last year and everything in between, and you can roll back to previous windows and times and so on. So very, very powerful. Incidentally, for the techies among us, all that data is available through an API if you want to do further analysis on it. These are just some of the data points we can pull out. So just a quick time check. I don't have a time here, but anyway, I think I'm good for time. There's no clock on this. Okay, so we're 11 past. Okay, so we're good for time. What I'd like to do next is, Roger, if you can pop over to those kind of, let's lift the HUD on this engine here a little bit. Now, we normally don't ever do shell access into these devices. There's no reason to. Our partners never touch them. They just stand the boxes up. If they want to change link speeds, they do that all through the GUI and everything. But we want to show you what's actually happening on the device in real time. So we've got some scripts running, and we've enabled shell access to this device at Roger's home, which you normally wouldn't need to do. So Roger, do you want to fire off a ping test there? And let's just run some pings across the link. And this ping test is loosely simulating a voice call. We've set the priority of a ping to the same as a voice call. So it's the top dog in the QoS world. And so it'll get treated the same way as a voice call. And the packet size and everything is to simulate a voice call. Now we're going to do a voice call over this because Roger's video and his audio, when he gets to speak, it's all coming over his environment. So this is a real live test. Dangerous thing to do on a YouTube video that gets recorded, but we're going to take a chance here anyway. And in the top right window, it's a little bit technical, but you're going to see 3 links, and there's going to be some traffic flow on these links. Now, I think Roger's, oh no, the backlight, no, it might be my end. So you can see the real-time traffic receive and transmit on all 3 legs. And if you notice that the one that says EMP6 has very, very little traffic on it, that's the LTE link. So it's not really doing anything. It's just a little bit of test traffic we're sending down. But the other 2 links have got quite a bit of traffic, and that's Roger's video share and all the rest of it, and his desktop share, et cetera, et cetera. And unfortunately, that's not really pushing these links very hard. So Roger, would you mind doing a big download? Let's fill these links up, because they're not going to believe our QoS story unless we're really, really loading these links. So now we are ramping up on a download, and it is your links are fairly small, right? Because you're pushing 2 megs, 5 megs on the other. So we're filling up the pipes here. So that's pretty good. So I'm going to ask Roger to explain what's going to happen next. And Roger can comment to the throughputs here. I guess you have a low broadband in your network, or you've dialed it back. But anyway, so we got a download running in the bottom left of the screen. You can see it's he's doing a big 10 gig file transfer, 4 hours left. It's going to take a while. And he's got his video. If you want to wave, Roger, you can see the video's live. And Roger gets to talk in a second. And Roger, do you mind talking us through the next bit and what you're going to do? So let's take it away, Roger.
Sure. I'm not sure on the top window why I'm not getting that. Should be coming up at about 57 megs. And maybe my broadband's here, because they are, although they're fiber, it's fiber out into the country, so who knows. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of fun here, and we're going to start to break things. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drop leg 130. And so when I drop that, what you're going to see is that ENP4 is going to go to kilobits rather than the few megabits that it was doing. So the system is testing it, but it will drop down to 0, and then the system's going to test it again. So you'll see a few kilobits run through it. And that's just because the system is testing that circuit to make sure that it is down or that it could be using it, and then we'll use it if it's possible. So we're simply running on ENP5 fiber right now. You can see it's now spun up to 19 megs for whatever reason, which is good, and we're getting all of that bandwidth. The next one, though, is going to be the fun one. We're actually going to drop that fiber connection. And we're going to flip over to that LTE. And we're going to do that so fast that we're not going to lose my phone call. We're not going to lose my video. We're not going to lose that big download, which has about 2 hours in order to finish at the moment. Everything is going to continue to run. So let's drop that fiber connection right now, and I'll start to wave so that you can see that. And I'll just keep talking so that you can hear my voice. And you will realize that we didn't lose anything. We just continued on. We don't even know, unless we're looking at the interface, that something has happened. So we'll let that run for just a second. We're up to 10 hours now for that big download, which makes sense because my LTE is rate limited down to 3 by 3 megs. The interface takes a little bit. It's near time, not real time. So it takes about 30 to 60 seconds before it catches up, but you can see that the two circuits, my two fibers, are now indicating being down, but we are running off of that LTE without any issues. And so now what we can do is we can start to bring these back. So I'm going to bring 130 back, and we're going to see what happens there. You'll notice that it spins up to 3-4 megabits like our LTE, and then it starts to spin up. And it would appear that that is the fiber connection that is causing the problems, although it has now got up to about 40 megs, which is its top speed on the download side. And so now if we bring back the other circuit, ENP5, we'll watch as it spins up, and hopefully this is going to ramp up. There we are, 57. It touched on 50 some odd megs there. So by times it is, which tells me that my fiber companies are having some trouble over there getting service into my area. So that's the failover. If we wait just a second here, this other circuit will come live again near time. We don't really need that big download anymore. I'm going to cancel that. And I'm going to jump back into this simulated phone call that we have. And I'm going to stop that ping test, and we'll take a look and see what actually happened on that. So 3907 packets were transmitted, and 3,900 packets were actually received. So we lost 7 packets in that simulated phone call. That's pretty amazing when you consider what happened there. We were spraying their data across 2 circuits. We dropped one of those circuits, and we were running then across just a single fiber connection. We dropped that fiber connection and spun up an LTE in real time and took over all of that load. And then we did the opposite. We dropped the fiber or the LTE connection, or sorry, we brought back a fiber, which dropped the LTE. And then we brought back our second fiber connection. All the while, we lost 7 packets in that phone call. Pretty amazing. I'm going to guess you didn't hear a click, and you wouldn't have seen anything in the video. An anomaly of a packet in the video would be nothing. So I'll turn it back over to Nikki. Nikki.
I will. I will mention one thing we forgot to highlight there, and that was my bad. Sorry, Roger. When you started doing the download, you will have noticed that both links ramped up, and we're doing one download, and that's proving that we're sending a single session across multiple paths. And this is a really, really powerful technology. my former employer, Cisco, this for an old Cisco engineer like me, that's like dragging your nails across a chalkboard. Like, you never turn on per packet load balancing, because it is a terrible thing to do, because everything just packets get out of order, all your applications break and everything. But the engineers at Turnium have found a really clever way to put them all back together in the right order, so that issue goes away, and you get to do these kind of cool things and just flow the traffic around. It's so cool. I love seeing this demo every time, and I've seen it many, many times. Never get tired of seeing it. So thank you very much, Roger, for sharing that demo. So I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time to understand what Turnium brings to the Connect platform, to the Connect story, about making your business super reliable. And at this point, we have, I believe, 5 to 10 minutes left. So to my plan, I try to keep these things fairly tight. I would like to open it up for any questions from the audience about what you just saw. So thank you.
Absolutely, that was outstanding. And every time I see that presentation, I'm always amazed with how the data loss is avoided. It's just continuous. It really is superior to so much of the other services that are out there. We do have a couple of questions. You mentioned that the solution is secure. Do you integrate a full network stack?
We do not provide firewalls. We are not a firewall security stack vendor. When we mention that it is secure, first off, all our components are super hardened. They're basically invisible. We've never been, well, I shouldn't say we've never been hacked, even though it's true. We don't want to issue it as a challenge to anyone. That's what I meant. We've never had any compromises on any front like this. And furthermore, what I'm referring to when I mentioned about how secure a solution is when we are sending data down 2 or more links, we are sending individual sessions down 2 or more links, which basically means that man-in-the-middle attacks are impossible. As long as there's at least 2 links in play, man-in-the-middle attacks are impossible. And this isn't just me as a techie saying this thing. One of our partners in the Middle East bought our solution for that very reason. And we hadn't really picked up on this. And they said, you know what? We don't like the governments around here surveilling people, because they've got like the IPsec stuff, all those terminates in their data centers. So they're looking at the data in the clear, or the backdoored into the IPsec protocols, whatever. We don't trust them. But it said, because your data is going across multiple providers through multiple paths, and even if you hack into the data center, you get garbage. Even if you break the encryption technologies, it's still garbage. And they said, we love that because nobody can break in the middle. So this is what we refer to as being extra secure. So it's like security on security. Thanks. Good question.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had some great conversations around some use cases for Turnium with our clients. And some of those great examples, whether it be municipality, whether it be police services, law enforcement, healthcare, when we talk about remote healthcare locations. And then to your point, Nikki, manufacturing and logistics can take huge advantage of this, especially with mobile vehicles and IoT these days and edge computing, which is going to be a great segue into our next presenters. Roger, Nikki, it was great seeing you today. Thank you so very much for coming. It's always amazing to have you with us.
It's really cool. Thank you for putting on such an amazing event. Your customers are very lucky to have you. So,
thank you very much.